Thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me to address you on this occasion of the anniversary of the Children's Rights and Business Principles. Anniversaries such as this one always provide us with an opportunity for stock taking. We tend to ask ourselves questions such as, how far have we come? Where are we now? And what do we need for the future? So let me start by looking over my shoulder and seeing how far we have come. Global Child Forum was initiated in 2010 by the Swedish royal family as a platform for business leaders and civil society to come together and discuss how business could support and advance children's rights. When the principles were launched shortly thereafter, they provided a much needed framework for the discussions that we were having. In 2013, a year after the launch of the principles, we hosted a panel discussion at the Global Child Forum to take stock of the first year of the CRBPs. The session noted that 1 year after the launch, there was a genuine level of interest among companies to learn and to adapt. 10 years on, have we maintained that momentum? Well, Global Child Forum is able to answer that question to some extent, because together with the Boston Consulting Group, we have been benchmarking the world's largest companies on how well they integrate the CRBPs into their operations and communities. Over the past decade, we have benchmarked nearly 3,000 global companies on a set of indicators based on the principles. So the benchmark offers us a snapshot of the world's largest companies, looking at their policies, processes, and practices within marketplace, workplace, community, and environment. Looking at our latest global benchmark, we do see that our data show progress, although modest. We see signs of improvement, particularly in that more companies have child labor policies in place, and that companies are reporting on environmental impacts. We also see that some companies have come far, and we have some great examples and best practices among almost all sectors. However, only 9% of companies benchmarked can be considered what we call leaders, those companies who have achieved the highest scores. So this proportion is low, especially when you consider that the companies benchmarked are among the most influential in the world. With the possible exception of child labor, many companies still struggle to understand the impact their businesses have on children in the wider community. So where are we now? Well, no crystal ball could have predicted the complexity of the state of the world today and the state of children's well-being. The world has been gripped by a pandemic that has left families, communities, and countries adrift. In fact, of all the heartbreaking effects of COVID-19, its impact on young people could prove to be one of its most damaging legacies. The recent war in Ukraine, putting the well-being of 7.5 million children at stake, has underscored the impact of conflict on children, and escalating conflicts in many parts of the world have pushed millions more children and their communities to the brink. Adding to these converging forces of conflict and COVID-19 is growing poverty and inequality and climate change, all of which are undoing decades of progress. We know that business has a key role to play in finding solutions. Amidst the rubble of these challenging times for children, we do see companies putting in place initiatives, programs, and emergency measures that support and help children and their families. We are seeing a number of companies showing up with humanity and with a sense of their role in the wider society. So what actions do we need to see now and in the coming decade? Well, companies do have much to gain to shift into a more holistic perspective and recognize how their operations impact children, and conversely, how children impact their operations. Focusing on children's rights encompasses much more than risk avoidance and compliance. They can improve children's lives through products and services, by supporting parents, and by ensuring that children have access to those products and services that are most important to them in their lives. Companies can also gain brand recognition and employee satisfaction, as well as stakeholder loyalty. Businesses can also create more stable relationships in their supply chains. What we also see is that leader companies in general are proficient at collaborating with others to solve problems that are greater than their individual entities in order to produce far-reaching impacts. Collaboration is key to seeing real integration of the CRBPs in the next decade. When businesses integrate the children's rights perspective into their operations, when they see children as key stakeholders and proxy indicators of progress on the SDGs, then the promise of business to have a positive impact turns into practice, which in turn turns into progress. In a recent article in the Harvard Business Review, the authors remind us that we humans are here on this planet to take care of each other, and business is a way to do that at scale. When the private sector pivots to serve the greater good, its reach and power is immense. Thank you so much for having me here today.